Very specific. Jen Easterly, the director of CISA, testifying before an appropriations subcommittee here in the House earlier this year, said, quote, "We don't flag anything to social media organizations at all. We are focused on building resilience to foreign influence and disinformation," close quote. Is that true or false, that CISA does not flag anything to social media organizations at all?
Wait for it.
All.
I believe that is true, Congressman, and I will verify that, but I believe that is true. We do. Do you
know, are you familiar with Brian Scully? Do you know who that is?
Boy.
I do not, Congressman.
He was, I think, the MDM, the person responsible for MDM, as you call it, and he testified about switchboarding. That CISA was engaged in switchboarding, in which, for example, it was essentially an audit official to identify something on social media that they deemed to be disinformation aimed at their jurisdiction.
Stop it.
They could forward that to CISA, and CISA would share that with the appropriate social media companies. Now, that was a quote from his testimony. That sounds like flagging to me, flagging to social media companies.
What?
And all of his testimony was of similar import. How does that reconcile with what you just said Ms. Easterly correctly answered before the Appropriations Subcommittee?
Congressman, a few points on switchboarding.
No. Would you
Yes.
Would you reconcile those two statements, please?
Yes.
I don't really have enough time to go off on a dissertation.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
If you'll allow me.
Quickly.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Thank you.
That practice, my understanding is that practice was in 2018 and 2020, is no longer employed by CISA.
So that was a f***ing lie.
And what it amounted to was serving as an intermediary between election officials and social media companies. We were not making a judgment back then in 2018 or 2020.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I get your point. And I know you're going to want to elaborate, and I appreciate that. But I think the point you just said, and I'd like to inquire further about it, you said it is no longer the practice. When did it stop?
I'd be pleased to provide that information to you.
But the answer's a fucking question.
And I will defer to the Director Easterly, but we will provide that information to you.
You do not know when they stopped doing it?
I do not.
You have said
Nice.
in your testimony here today several times that we are taking it to the cartels to an unprecedented degree, dismantling those criminal organizations. Those are two things you said. Have Mexican drug cartels become stronger or weaker during your tenure as secretary?
Congressman, we are taking it to the cartels to an unprecedented
You already said that. In
degree.
fact, I just repeated it to you. Have they become stronger or weaker on your watch?
Congressman, the cartels have been a challenge for not only this country, but many
Are
countries
you not able
around
to
the
say
world.
whether they're stronger or weaker on your watch?
We, through our efforts have weakened those cartels by, by the investigations and prosecutions that we have conducted with our international
The cartels
partners.
are weakened under your tenure? Is that what your testimony is, sir?
When we disrupt a cartel, when we arrest an individual with our
Stop it. Get some help.
partners, we have weakened them. That is what the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security are dedicated to doing.
How much revenue have the cartels received
Look at this.
during your tenure?
Congressman, I don't have that data.
Do you have any, you have no estimate about that whatsoever? That
The
you bear in
cartels-
your mind what revenues Mexican drug cartels have received during your tenure as secretary?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Congressman, the cartels are very profitable. They were very profitable 3 years ago, and they were very profitable 6 years ago.
Are they
And I will
making
tell you
more
this.
or less revenue under your tenure
Wait for it.
now than under previous administration?
And I will tell you this, that we are unrelenting in our
More or
attack
I
against the
understand your
cartels.
efforts, sir. What I'm talking about are your results.
Wait for it.
Are they making more or less revenue under your tenure than your predecessors?
We have arrested more criminals involved in cartel activity
Stop it.
than in the prior.
Do you not know whether they're making more revenue, or are you simply evading my question?
Congressman, I believe I answered your question that I do not have that data.
Are
And I
drug
will say
deaths
this,
due to penetrating the southern border of the
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
United States increased or reduced during your 30-month tenure over prior periods?
the cartels outside of the United States have also stretched their jurisdiction to other countries around the world.
But you've done a hell of a job. When I became ranking member of the Homeland Security Border Subcommittee, I made it my priority to visit every major port of entry on the southern border.
Okay.
I visited, met with men and women in uniform, both blue and green uniforms. Wanted to see what their job was about, what the challenges were. But Mr. Secretary, let's talk refugees. COVID-19 has changed the world. Today, we're probably seeing the biggest movement of refugees in recent history, if not in the history of the world. Title 42. You can do it! When Title 42 was about to be lifted, everybody was expecting total chaos at the border. A week before that, a few days
Stop it.
before that event, I went to San Isidro, myself and the border port director visited Mexico. We met with Mexican officials, federal, state, local, as well as Mexican stakeholders.
Okay.
Interested in making sure everything went well at the border. Everybody expected chaos. Title 42 was lifted, no chaos. Everything went unexpectedly well. What? I think you were the architect of that policy, carrot and sticks. You made sure that people had a pathway, had incentives to
Wait for it.
come legally, and you also put criminal sanctions on those that would break those laws. And of course, you also worked with some of our partners south of the border to make sure that this job was not just the United States, but that the burden was shared with other people like Mexico, Colombia, and other nations around the world. Mr. Mayorkas.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
You're doing a good job. So my question to you today is, how can we, U.S. Congress, assist you in doing a better job for the United States?
The most fundamental benefit that we could receive from Congress is legislative reform.
You know, I'd like to see us move to an immigration reform. You were
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
trying to say earlier, we have 12 million undocumented workers working in this country, some having been here for 10, 20, 30 years. No hope of an adjustment of status. We have another 10 million.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Job openings in this country today. Let's quickly, in my last minute or two, talk about fentanyl. It's ruining Main Street back home.
Wait for it.
So
Deaths. 80 to 90% of the fentanyl comes through our ports of entries. Yet right now, you only have enough funding to maybe inspect 2% of the vehicles coming through our
okay.
ports of entry. Does that sound about right?
Congressman, we have harnessed advanced technology, most notably the non-intrusive inspection technology, to be a force multiplier for our personnel.
That was a lie.
We rely on funding from Congress for not only that technology, but also the personnel who operate it, the extraordinary people of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, both our Border Patrol agents and our Office of Field Operations personnel, and
So,
our
Mr.
Air and Marine.
Secretary, if we wanted to stop more fentanyl from coming into the country, I'd say you need more personnel, more technology, more of those drug-sniffing dogs that are so effective, you need more funding. We want to go from 2% of inspections to 4 to 6 to 10% of those vehicles being inspected. You need the funds.
We do, Congressman, and it is a two-part challenge. It is addressing the supply, which your question is focused on, of course, and we also have to address the issue of demand in this
Stop it.
country. The scourge of drugs has been a long, enduring one. I will say I prosecuted many narcotics trafficking cases.
So that was a lie.
In my time as a prosecutor, the toxicity of fentanyl is something I've never seen before.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for your good work. We want to partner with you to make sure we protect
Gentlemen,
America from those negative elements coming into this country. Mr. Chair, I yield.
gentleman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, let me focus on CISA a moment.
Wait for it.
And something very specific. Jen Easterly, the director of CISA, testifying before an appropriations subcommittee here in the House earlier this year, said, quote, "We don't flag anything to social media organizations."
Kind of stuff you gave us
What the hell?
when we were trying to figure out who was responsible for putting together the Disinformation Governance Board, and I think my colleague, Mr. Johnson, was asking. And now we're asking a simple question about a number. And the fact that you won't give it to us or don't know it is, I think, a concern for all of us. I would say both sides, because the Democrats probably want to know too. They probably that's something that should be so obvious, and you won't communicate to. Make your third point.
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide that information to every member.
Will it be like this, or will it be a real number? Will it be like that? Will it be a real number?
Mr. Chairman, the third point I would
Let me
make-
ask you real quick. Can you get that number to us like tomorrow? Or is it you got to go back, and is it going to take weeks and months and haggling back and forth on all the letters
Listening, you have my attention.
we do? Congress writes letters to agencies and we haggle back and forth, all that dance we have to do. Or can you just get us the number?
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide that data to you as promptly as possible. My third point would be the most fundamental point of all.
So that was a lie.
When we speak of immigration, we are dealing with a fundamentally broken system. We have between 11 and 12 million.
I got 50 seconds, so I appreciate that. You've said that before, so I got that point. Don't mean to cut you off, but I got to get this. Now,
Okay.
in your testimony, you said you've arrested 14,000 smugglers. Seems like a big number to me. What happened to those guys?
Those individuals, Mr. Chairman, are, if the evidence so supports, prosecuted.
You serious?
For smuggling.
You've referred them to DOJ. You've arrested them. You've given them over to DOJ. What's happened to them? Have they been indicted, taken to trial, found guilty? Are they in prison somewhere? What's the status?
But the answer's a fucking question.
That is a huge number. 14,000 smugglers. I mean, God bless you for getting them, but I'd like to know what happened to them.
Very, very pleased to provide that data to you. Let me provide some examples.
You just told us a couple minutes ago you work closely with the FBI. We'd like that information too.
I am the one.
That's important. Have you arrested any of them multiple times?
Congressman, I'll provide that information for
You think that's a possibility? Some of those smugglers you've arrested more than once?
It's a fucking question.
Congressman, when I prosecuted immigration crimes in the 1990s, we saw individuals who had repeated violations of criminal laws of the United States and repeated removals from the United States.
Stop it.
I think
Prosecuted.
my time has expired. But you think a smuggler, you catch someone smuggling people, smuggling drugs, that guy would be prosecuted, and you'd think you would, again, know that answer too. But we hope you get those answers to us. I yield.
Nice.
Now to
Unanimous consent request,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from Washington is recognized for UC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a New York Times article called "Burning Cell Towers Out of Baseless Fear, They Spread the Virus." This is a conspiracy theory linking the spread of the coronavirus to 5G wireless technology that spurred more than 100 incidents in just 1 month.
Objection. The chair
Thank
now
you, Mr. Chairman.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary, welcome. Thank you for your good job. I really believe you have a thankless job. But you've done a hell of a job. When I became ranking member of the Homeland Security Border Subcommittee, I made it my priority to visit every major port of entry on the southern border.
Okay.
I visited, met with men and women in uniform, both blue and green uniforms. Wanted to see what their job was about, what the challenges were. But Mr. Secretary, let's talk refugees. COVID-19 has changed the world. Today, we're probably seeing the biggest movement of refugees in recent history, if not in the history of the world. Title 42. You can do it! When Title 42 was about to be lifted, everybody was expecting total chaos at the border. A week before that, a few days
Stop it.
before that event, I went to San Isidro, myself and the border port director visited Mexico. We met with Mexican officials, federal, state, local, as well as Mexican stakeholders.
Okay.
Interested in making sure everything went well at the border. Everybody expected chaos. Title 42 was lifted, no chaos. Everything went unexpectedly well. What? I think you were the architect of that policy, carrot and sticks. You made sure that people had a pathway, had incentives to
Wait for it.
come legally, and you also put criminal sanctions on those that would break those laws. And of course, you also worked with some of our partners south of the border to make sure that this job was not just the United States, but that the burden was shared with other people like Mexico, Colombia, and other nations around the world.